who would like to start the presentation? And I'll give you guys the I make Carla and Jack, I made you co-hosts. So whenever you guys are ready to begin your presentation.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Roundtree. I'm Chief Volunteer Officer at Cincinnati Cares. And Renika has invited me to be a panelist due to the program that we have at Cincinnati Cares called Board Connect. And we help people get on nonprofit boards and help them find nonprofit boards. And I'm going to bounce it over to Jack because we kind of go hand in hand.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome. Looks like Jack isn't.
Jack, you're muted, just in case you're speaking.
Hi, everybody. My apologies. I was stepping away until 6 o'clock, but it sounds like we're getting started. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Jack Fitzgerald. I am the BOLD Program Manager at the Leadership Council for Nonprofits. We coordinate a program called the Board Orientation and Leadership Development Program, which has been a keynote program in the city of Cincinnati for the last 30 years. It was originally started by United Way of Greater Cincinnati and came over to the Leadership Council in late 2019. Since receiving the program, we have trained over 180 individuals for nonprofit board service.
So in the website, Board Connect actually was also at the United Way, and they kind of passed that baton to us since we are a tech nonprofit, and we kind of rewrote the platform and changed a few things about it, and have made I don't even know how many at last count, maybe 150 matches at minimum. Now that I'm adding it up in my head after all the Board Connect events we've done and so forth. We were also, pre-pandemic, we were doing in-person Board Connect events that were a little bit speed dating style. And we're working directly with BOLD and with Jack. So now no longer did BOLD have to worry about organizing a nonprofit kind of meet and greet for the BOLD participants. They could just kind of move them into our program, our meet and greet Board Connect event. So the nice thing is the BOLD candidates had a date and time they could meet the nonprofits in the speed dating style event, and the website gave them a list of their best matches of the board positions in the room based on the relevancy scores the system creates that shows them, due to your causes that you are passionate about and the skills that you have and the skills that the nonprofits are looking for, we think these are your best matches. And the nonprofits really appreciate that because it gives them very quick, meaningful conversations with people that actually might be a fit versus that, that job fair model where you never knew who's going to show up at your table kind of thing. And it's worked out very well for the participants in BOLD. Then we had the pandemic. So we're like, how do we do this now? And luckily we are a tech nonprofit, and thanks to some great coaching by Prestige AV locally. I always like to give them a shout out. They kind of did a little bit of pro bono work for us and helped tell us the best way they thought to do it. We were able to take our event virtually, and the nonprofits, for the most part, have said they think they like it better. It kind of makes the candidates sign up ahead of time versus in the live event, they could just show up and kind of randomly go where they wanted. So the nonprofits get to kind of peek at their profiles before they meet and have better conversations from it. And it's gone very well.
I actually like it. I did the ones where we were centered around in a circle and people will come and they'll take a couple of brochures and wouldn't really get a chance to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually like it.
That's
It's
the
been-
feedback we're getting from a lot of nonprofits. And here, Jackie, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's, one thing that's, I think, come out of the pandemic is a realization for a need of collaboration. And I just have really enjoyed working with Carol, especially at Cincinnati Cares. Carol is one of our mentors for the BOLD program. So as a part of signing up for BOLD, sorry, I was getting a call. As a part of, it was one of our BOLD participants, Shirley. We were so as a part of the BOLD program, we've instituted something now where a participant has a mentor who is either a nonprofit leader in the community or somebody that has gone through the BOLD program themselves. And Carol had volunteered to become one of these mentors and has supported groups of, it's typically between 4 to 6 mentees. So it's been really great to collaborate with Carol and Cincinnati Cares in that way. And actually, as a part of the BOLD program, we've required it for every BOLD participant to start the program by creating a Board Connect profile on Cincinnati Cares website. So actually, I haven't even told Carol this, but today we had our BOLD orientation for our 6th class. And I had somebody come on and say, I'm so glad I created a Board Connect profile because I was amazed at the amount of opportunities there were out there for me and aligned with my skill sets and interests. So that's just a little bit of, we'll call it a nugget for anybody out there who's, maybe not ready to sign up for BOLD yet, but wants to see what's out there. The Board Connect platform through Cincinnati Cares is a wonderful, wonderful resource in our community. And just gratitude to Carol for publicly here for her support and help and mentorship.
Thanks, Jack. Yes, it's actually been a lot of fun to mentor the BOLD participants because I feel like I can actually be helpful to them and help encourage them to use the website or reach out to different nonprofits or kind of coach them along. It's been really great.
Okay, so will you guys like to get started with the panel, or are you guys doing like a PowerPoint presentation? Just one.
Oh, get started with the panel.
Okay, that's fine. I will let's have everyone introduce themselves. Lamont, if you would like to introduce yourself, and I didn't catch the name of In Real Life Enterprise.
Yes, hi. I'm Miss Banks. I'm the owner of In Real Life Enterprises. I'm saying hi. I don't know if I should be asking a question. I don't have any questions at the moment. I'm just listening. I do not live in Cincinnati, so I'm just listening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lamont Young, filmmaker, media producer. I am based in Cincinnati. I've had a few films that have won awards. My experience in nonprofit has either been educational based, working with Media Bridges for 8 years as an employee, and then maybe like 2 years, 3 years prior as just a volunteer and producer. I worked for Price Hill Wheel as their community engagement coordinator. Created Price Hill Story Share, which was a short doc series about the just the residents in the, that are in Lower East and West Price Hill, and the basically everything that Price Hill Will and my Cincinnati was doing to engage the community. I worked for Gabriel's Place as well same capacity, but more so focused on food insecurity. And now I'm more so focusing on my craft, but I still work in a nonprofit as a caregiver for uh, children that are transitioning out of foster care.
Okay, well, thank you for introducing yourself, Lamont. Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Jen Meltretter. I'm here as representative of Catch a Fire, being a volunteer for only a few months. But my full-time 9 to 5 job is I'm the education program manager at the Optical Society, which is based in DC. We're a global scientific organization, and my job specifically focuses on leadership development and diversity and inclusion programming for scientists. I'm also not in the Cincinnati area. I actually live in the Seattle area.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Jennifer was one of our volunteers from Catch Fire. Actually asked Catch Fire if they could make this panel discussion to educate our community about the opportunities and volunteer projects that volunteers can take part in on the Catch Fire website. And Catch Fire believed it was better to have one of our volunteers that actually volunteer on a website to actually join the panel discussion and give their experience. So Jennifer's one of our volunteers out of many volunteers that have helped us out in multiple different projects this year. So I appreciate your presence in joining us. So I'll begin I'm gonna pin both of you guys, all three of you, to the screen. And if you guys would like to show your videos, that'd be great since we're on Facebook Live right now. And then we have you guys pinned. Jack, are you ready?
There he is.
Hey, how are you doing? So, and I'm gonna, of course, show myself since the questions are gonna come back to Renika, so Renika can be seen too. And so my first question, and I will start with Jennifer, what advice would you give to someone who is hoping to get started in freelance work from the strategy of starting as a volunteer?
That's a good question. I have been volunteering for a very long time, since I was probably in high school. And so for me, it's almost like second nature. I think if you haven't really volunteered in the past and are thinking of getting into it, to really think about your passions. That's kind of how I've been really focusing my time and efforts now on my passion areas. So that's how I found out about Catch a Fire. Is I find organizations that I'm passionate about their mission and vision, much like Generation Now, and then I've lent my time and support to it. I think if you don't have that personal buy-in, it's kind of hard to really put your 100% effort into it. So that would be my main advice, is to definitely find things that you're really passionate about and you want to help others learn about, or, help nonprofits like Generation Now become the best that they can be.
Thank you so much. Jack, do you have a comment from that question?
Yes, I would just jump off of the point of purpose. We, as a part of the BOLD program, have something called the Capstone Project, and it's really the conclusion of 7 to 8 weeks worth of investment in the program. So at the end of BOLD, what we ask each participant to do is submit a capstone, and really it's their action plan. And I recently had the opportunity to go through 40 of these capstones, and it was really humbling to read them, because people are pouring out a lot of reflection that they had done in the course of that time, and relating it directly to purpose. I'm struck by how in individuals' reflections, how much their purpose comes directly from something that had either happened to them or happened to a loved one. So kind of for the last week or so, I've been sharing with individuals that, if you don't know what your purpose is, it's probably something that's already happened to you or happened to somebody around you. And it's just taking the time to, giving yourself the time to reflect on what that might be. So.
Absolutely, great question. And so from the director and queen of Cincinnati Cares and Board Connect, how have you seen from your point of view, board experiences and volunteer work? How have you seen it blossom with different volunteers that you have working with, or impact from organizations, feedback?
Oh, when it's a great match, it's one of those win, 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 I think, situations where, oh yes, my dog has decided to say hello.
Hello.
So where the nonprofit reaps the benefits of getting a good match, where the skills are right, the personality is right, they gel with everybody. The board member gets the amazing experience of helping at such a high level with a nonprofit, a much more engaged level. And then the nonprofit just benefits from a good match.
Oh, that's good. And I can agree to that too, as a not-for-profit founder. And so my next question is, I know this is a question that I have experienced, that I have actually witnessed with a lot of young professionals. How can you manage board volunteering or just volunteer projects on the side with having a full-time job?
I can start with that question because I do it a lot. Right now, I'm on a few different boards. I'm a director for a conference around for women's empowerment around like Comic-Con type of stuff. So I do a lot. And the way that I juggle it is I just really have to write things down and organize. It really comes down to organization. I think that's key amongst anything that you do. But it's also being very realistic about how much time you actually have. And it's okay if you want to say, you know what, I can't do this opportunity because I need time for myself, especially right now during this pandemic session. Like I've noticed it. I've gotten, I think, officially to the point of burnt out. And so I need to look at my priorities again and see what I value the most and what I'm willing to spend my time to. So I think it's really being organized, making sure, going back to the other question, that you're really putting your passions into perspective and putting them at a high priority. And then also not being afraid to say no to some opportunities. It's okay to say no. I know sometimes you'll hear advice from different career people in general to say yes to everything, but I think especially now it's important to get the message out that it's okay to say
Balance.
no.
Yeah, it's really good to have.
Well, and to add to that, I think you need to pick your opportunities wisely. If you know you're really busy, then maybe don't pick a working board where they're expecting 10 hours a month. Pick more of a operational board where it's, a meeting a month and some emails and a few things where it is a little bit more manageable. And same with your volunteering as well. So what can you give? When can you give it? Is it something that you can do during your workday or not, depending on your job, and just planning it carefully. And that's part of the vetting of joining a board, right? Is making sure you can meet the time commitment and it does fit in your life.
Yeah, I add as well that I think it's about building relationships wherever you are too, and prioritizing the people that are there, whether that be the individuals that you're serving, or in the case of, the others on the board as well. I know, in any volunteer experience that I've had. I've really enjoyed just the relationships, the people that I've gotten to know through that experience. And it's through those relationships that I think ultimately I've been propelled to continue on and move forward. Just this week, I drove 4 hours to be with one of our bold graduates. He asked me to come to his board meeting, and I didn't think a whole lot of it, just because I knew that it would mean a lot to him that I was there, and it ended up meaning a lot to me as well. So
That's
I would say
good.
the relational side of it as well is huge. It's huge for
Lighted
my
the extra fire under you because you got to see the impact
right.
from another different perspective. And so I know from my board experience, and I'm just the person throwing out questions, but I know that this video is Facebook Live, and I want to educate young professionals is to really balance out your schedules, really pick priorities. I have seen in the past with experience with young professionals, I sat on boards or, different situations where they have picked to sit on 4 or 5 different board opportunities, and then they had to quit like 2 or 3 of them because it was too hard to manage. So you really want to pick the priorities of commitment of how many boards you want to be on. And I always tell young professionals too, getting to Carla's point is Carol or Carla? Carol, right? Carol. Okay, just making sure. Sorry, I want to get your name right. So Carol, but I know a Carla, and her name is spelled like yours with an A at the end. And so getting to Kara's point of view is that you really want to be serious about taking the board opportunity serious, and really just picking the best board to be on, and knowing what kind of board you want to be on. Do you want to be on a working board, an advisory board where you just want to give advice, or sometimes do you just want to go and volunteer for just one event? So that's just different options you want to look at. And so I have an expert question, and I'll start with Carol. I'll start with you.
Okay.
What has the impact, and how has the non-for-profit industry evolved in the past 5-10 years?
That is a very big question.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest impacts is the way people are giving has changed a lot, and it's kind of turned development around its ear a little bit. The younger generation seems to like to do lots of smaller amounts of donations versus the older generation that wants to write a couple big checks. So that has changed. So philanthropy, I think, has changed quite a bit. The other thing that is changing is how people want to volunteer. So I think, our parents' generation were kind of okay with just showing up and doing the stuff that needed to be done.
Get
Where
their
the
hands
younger
dirty.
generation, yeah.
Oh
the
no, I
water-
just specifically said I was going to hold up the sign and stand here for 3 hours. That's it. Here to pour
Yes.
beer, and that's it. Yeah.
Sometimes you need those kind of mindless jobs, but
Yeah.
truly the younger generation wants more impact. So they want to do the skills-based volunteering. They want to be on a committee. They want to help create the event, not just show up to pour the wine for the event.
Mhm.
So I think that the volunteer space is changing dramatically. And with the pandemic, who knows what's going to happen, because it's going to change volunteering even more dramatically, because I think a lot of retirees are no longer going to be comfortable going into schools tutoring. So we've got to get creative as a society on how we do that.
Mhm.
Lots of changes for sure. This pandemic will definitely do that for us.
Answer. Jen, what's your take? what changes have you seen as a participant in board work and being involved with non-for-profits in the last 5 to 10 years? And I know that's a really broad question.
It's kind of hard for me to talk about it as a volunteer. I've been on boards, been part of nonprofits, organizations, and things like that. So basically what Carol is saying is what I'm seeing, not so much in the Catch a Fire world, but in my day-to-day job, since I work in between a foundation and an organization in general. And I think now we're really catering towards the younger generations rather than the older generations, because they're, as of right now, just being a little bit more vocal than the older generations, at least from my organization standpoint. But yeah, it's kind of hard for me to say as a volunteer. As a volunteer, like, I choose to do things that I'm good at. So I'm great at event planning. I'm great at organization and creating structure. I've helped a few organizations restructure their websites or their organizational development within and things like that. And so I definitely agree with what Carol's saying, that, I want to be in the weeds. I want to put my talents to good use and not just donate money and just say, okay, great, thanks so much. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you so much. Jack?
I disagree with everything that's been said. No, I'm kidding. I do not. I think the only thing I would add is, because my boss is a numbers professional. She likes measurement, and I feel that that's something I think in the last 10 years we've seen in the nonprofit sector, is just this tightening of measurement and programmatic impact, and embracing of data. Our organization just implemented Salesforce so that we can make better decisions and pull better reports. So that's what I would say.
I think so too. So to Kara, is that right? Yes.
Carol.
Carol, sorry. Carol. I'm so sorry. I want to make sure to get your name right. And I think because I'm nervous and I keep saying I'm going to say it wrong, I keep saying it wrong. And
That's
so
okay.
sorry about that. But that just lets you know how much I want to get your name right, because that, that's a respect thing. You want to make sure to say everyone's name correctly. And so my question, I love how Board Connect has so many different innovative ways of how you guys actually present programs to the community, of how you can get involved as a volunteer. How can organizations stay innovative with volunteer work and recruiting board members, and also for board members, I'll ask that question after this one. 2-on-1.
So innovative, boards really need to think about mindfully recruiting people. I think historically, because executive directors are stretched so thin, they say to their board members, anybody, we got an open seat coming. So the people on the board invite the people that they know, and then the board looks a little bit all the same because it's people inviting who they know in their circle. So I think there needs to be a very clear path for nonprofits to make sure, do they have the representation of someone under 40 on their board? Do they have the representation of a minority they may not be currently having on their board right now? An economic difference, like, you don't want all the same kind of thought on a board. You need to make sure you have different thought thinkers that can bring different things to the table.
A lot of board governance support.
Yes, so you need different skill sets and different mindsets to make a board make sure a board mindfully goes in the direction it needs to go to propel the mission of the nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so the same question I'll ask to Jack.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, every board is different. The first organization that came to mind, we use a lot of case studies in the BOLD program, and there's an organization in a neighborhood called Price Hill, and they used a board skills matrix and recruited what by societal norms would have been a very successful board. They had individuals from top companies throughout Cincinnati. Folks were giving at a great rate, and from the outside looking in, it looked very good. But I think after taking a more critical look at their organization, they realized that they wanted to have more representation of the individuals in their neighborhood who they were serving. So actually now to date, 50% of their board is made up of the individuals who they're serving, which is a very interesting model. And not that works for every board and every organization, but it was neat. We shared that with our last BOLD class, and there were definitely a few folks who were more in the, I think it really resonated with folks, especially in the human services sector.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I see it.
there was somebody who was serving on a board at that time in the human services sector, and apparently her executive director had really been pushing that idea, and as a board member she was pushing back. But after that BOLD presentation, she was kind of changing her mind. So again, I think every board is different, but I think that's a powerful story, especially for anybody in the human services space.
Absolutely. And Jen, I have a question to you as a volunteer. How do you go about picking your actual volunteer projects and board opportunities?
As I mentioned before, it's based on the skills that I have. So the skills that I have as well as the passions that I have. So for me, my passion points are leadership development, diversity and inclusion, because it's what I do on a daily basis at work. But then also I think about my identities. I think about my identities as well. A major area that I have started volunteering my time for is that I am an adoptee, a transracial adoptee. So that is a space that, there's not a lot of organizations like with a lot of money built around that besides adoption agencies, and their focus isn't on us and the things that we need. So, there are a lot of nonprofit organizations solely based on volunteer time and experience. And so that's kind of where I've been lending a lot of my time and efforts on right now. But again, it really just goes back to my talents that I have, my passion points. And I think Carol mentioned it before, like, what am I going to get out of it and how is it going to help me in the future as well?
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to new volunteers, new young professional volunteers, and advice to the volunteers joining the event today?
I think Jack mentioned it before, to like really take like the time to really think about you and what you have to offer, what you like to do, what you don't like to do. I've been doing that a lot recently over the past year, not just in my volunteer roles, but also in my professional life too. Like, where do I want to be in 5 to 10 years? And I really don't like that question. But it's true, because you really need to take into consideration, like, what do you want to accomplish in life, and what organizations or positions or skill sets can you acquire that can take you there? So it really starts from looking within and then seeing what opportunities there are available around you that can help you grow that skill set. Oh, you're on mute.
I muted it for a second. I wanted to make sure to post the Facebook Live video on LinkedIn as well for our LinkedIn followers. And so I think that's a really good advice to give. And I want to turn it to the actual guests who are here today. If you guys have any, do you guys have any questions for the panelists? Hello, Tanya.
Hi, how are you? Yes, I
Okay.
do not have any questions, but great discussion.
Oh, I'm glad that you like the discussion. So I appreciate that. We put it together for the community of individuals. Anyone else have a question?
Yeah, hey everyone. My name's Morgan. I'm a volunteer for Generation Now. And I do have a quick question. I know, Jen, you mentioned earlier that you like to focus your nonprofit and volunteer efforts on like honing in on the skills that you're good at, which I definitely feel that. And something that I've been trying to do recently is to use like my volunteer work to work on skills that I'm not as good at. And I just wanted to hear like what y'all's thoughts were with that, like if you see that often or what you recommend.
Yeah, I could take this first. So actually, Morgan, you make a great point, and that's actually something that I've started pivoting to now as well, is focusing on the skills that I need a little bit more work in. For instance, marketing is not my forte, and I have to do it a lot at work, and so I'm trying to get other experience elsewhere to just learn a little bit more about it. So actually, in one of my boards, I've taken on the marketing role and have started overseeing our social media accounts, which is very daunting to me, but it's been a really great experience for me to really understand how to put a marketing package plan together and all of that stuff. So that's definitely an avenue that I recommend, and at least now that I've started to take.
Well, and I see it by the people that reach out to me to volunteer. So you all may not realize this, but we have over 50 volunteers on our roster plus part-time college interns. And I have one volunteer I'm thinking of specifically. She saw that we were looking for marketing support help. She's passionate about marketing, but hasn't had a job in it. She's staying home with her kids right now. So she's using her opportunity to volunteer for us to gain her marketing skills. So when she's ready to go back to work, she can add that to her resume. And then Renika, we were talking earlier about Help Connect. I've seen that with the volunteers that want to do Help Connect because people want to learn how to do scenario planning, and we've incorporated.
Can you explain
training.
to everyone tuned into the event, Facebook Live and watching playback? Can you explain to them a little bit more about Board Connect and Cincinnati Cares, just in case they missed the introduction?
Oh, sure. So Cincinnati Cares is a volunteer guide website in Cincinnati, and we have several other spread across the country. And today we're specifically talking about the Board Connect website, which is where people can create an account to find a board position here locally in Cincinnati. We've also piloted a Help Connect program where we're pairing teams of volunteers together to work directly with a nonprofit on a specific need the nonprofit has. Our current focus on that is scenario planning. So we've seen people raise their hand very quickly about volunteering for this because they themselves want to learn that scenario planning skill. And we have training by a scenario planning expert as part of this volunteer opportunity. And that has gone very well. In fact, someone on this call has been on it, but I won't put her on the spotlight unless she wants to speak about it. So.
Can I put that person on the spot? Would you like to speak about it? I'm just playing. Just joking.
She's not turning her mic off, so I'm gonna say probably not.
Probably not. Okay. Any more questions? Any questions from Lamont? Do you have any interest in maybe working with organizations to create pro bono video production projects? That's something a lot of organizations are looking for right now too, since everyone is going through a strategy of how to actually go viral, not just virtual.
Well, maybe because I don't know. I haven't really offered that service in a while to nonprofits. It was more so when I was working in that capacity with them. I am open to it. I guess what what are nonprofits typically looking for? Because when they want services like that.
Typically they're looking for like a 1 minute to 3 minute, sometimes 2 minute promotional video about their nonprofit. It can be a 1 minute video where they're just advocating the services of the non-for-profit too. So it was just a question that was kind of a way to kind of freelance and give back and add things to your resume too. I also, since I came from the field of human resource, I used to preach. I work at UC. I used to work at UC, but I'm still at UC as a student. But when I worked at UC, I will always tell the students to make your resume look good. Take opportunities sitting on a board or volunteering your time, because you can also add those things as value to your resume. So I think that's something else to add to value of board opportunities and actual volunteer opportunities as well. Is there any more questions from anyone?
I think I would add in from a question earlier that, nonprofit board service, especially for the YP generation, is an unsung way of developing your skills. We've had a number of individuals under the age of 25 come through the BOLD program. And as a matter of fact, we have a panel coming up that's sponsored by the University of Cincinnati. And we're going to be presenting to their entire YP audience about how these 3 amazing women that have gone through the BOLD program are now serving on boards. And again, they are all under the age of 25. So I think just to Jen's point earlier, it's an opportunity to develop skills that you would not have otherwise. And, I'm 26 years old. I'm taking it upon myself to share with other folks in their 20s, around my age, that this is absolutely a critical thing to get involved in to develop yourself as a professional. So, not to say that, board service is certainly for everyone, not just YPs, but I think we need to do our part in telling them that they can have a seat at the table.
Absolutely. I had that fire when I was at your age too, Jack. I look really good for my age, but I'm in my early 30s now. So just hearing you talk, you made me smile, because it was like, I remember when I had that fire, and that fire was founding and starting generation now. That was a lot of fire. But I remember the first board at UC, I joined a couple of different student organization boards, but I guess then I didn't look at it as if it was like a serious community opportunity, because it was just like something on campus. And so after college was over, the first official board that I joined was at the American Red Cross, and I think I was 25 years old. And I used to join a meetup group, and they actually did snacks for kids at Ronald McDonald House. So I did a lot of advocacy work. I did the advocate work of trying to find who Renika Smalley is, but I knew it was going to be something in the community. I just didn't know what yet. So hearing you tell your side of things, it has made me think about my passion, especially doing board leadership. So you're the perfect person for that position to really light the fire and educate young professional peers such as yourself.
And Carol, was that comment earlier for me?
It was.
Can you repeat your question? I was fooling around trying to get my audio together here.
Well, we were talking about how people volunteer to cultivate their own skills, and I was calling you out because you were just in our last Help Connect cohort.
Yes. So I and I don't know if the question is really around I guess if that's a good idea, or just the way I approached in trying to engage. But what I was looking at, I think, was similar to some of the other comments that have been made around trying to identify opportunities. When I think about like upskilling, or if I'm trying to nurture or grow in a specific skill set or a leadership area, I'm finding that using this as a, I'll say, pathway to accomplish that has worked for me. And I would encourage, and as I am a mentor with the BOLD program, I've shared that with some of the mentees in my mentor circle. So I am also a BOLD graduate. So I wanted to give a plug there for Jack and the Leadership Council for nonprofits, and had a great experience in learning and absorbing so much information and expanding my network from amazing and dynamic speakers that presented information and topics, and kind of exposed and opened the door to things that I didn't know, or making connections with people that I didn't know, and being able to nurture and grow those relationships, where I did get invitations to join boards as a result of that process, participate in events like the Board Connect, get hooked up with Carol, who's on this call, and as well as Jack.
Tanya's become one of my favorite people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. And I also learned of the Health Connect event through that network, which I would have probably missed it in, a LinkedIn, feed or something. I probably would have missed it or overlooked it. But being, I think, in the right place at that time, I was able to learn of that and participate with the organization and help with strategic planning, which is one of
Oh,
the
that's
areas
great.
that I want to grow in my skill set. So when I think about my toolbox, that's one of the tools that I want to grow and be bigger and better.
Yes, which is why I
Good.
called you out, because I kind of knew that you did that to grow your own skills as a volunteer. And, like I mentor for Jack, teaching is actually my background. So like coaching for mentees for BOLD is just right up my alley, and I love doing it. And it's not something I do on a daily basis. So that's one reason why you volunteer, is maybe you have a skill that you love that you can't use at your day job.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's very impactful. Like, I'm impressed with the work that you have done. And so it's hard, me being a founder of a non-for-profit, just saying to a volunteer, it's hard to find people with that passion now, where they're doing it for the reasons of actually skill set development. And so it's like a small bucket of people that you usually find that's like that now. But anybody just helping out, even if it's a person that just want to pass out drinks, that's a volunteer to appreciate. So is there any more questions anyone have for the panelists, or does the panelists have any questions? Or
One thing that we kind of talked about in our pre-call was what it takes to be a good board member. And I think sometimes people think it takes more than it does, because really all that takes is, for one, the passion to serve, making sure it's the right fit, that you have the right time. Also making sure you understand the mission and the expectations of what that organization is trying to accomplish, and showing up and being present. I can't tell you how many executive directors I hear complain that they have a third of their board that doesn't come to anything and doesn't read their emails or anything. And they're doing it for a resume line, but not to really give back. So just be present, be thoughtful. I know a lot of people are also worried about the financial obligations of boards, and that's where picking your right board is one of the ways to work on that. I know back when my kids were little and I was on a board and I wasn't feeling like I could write big checks, I actually put an event together for that nonprofit that they never would have done without me. And I feel like that was my give. So sometimes giving isn't necessarily the checkbook. It's what you can bring to that organization that they may not have had that opportunity without you to do it.
And that's always been good. I know for Generation Now, our young professional, when we were all just like a junior board of friends, we actually just went back to our companies and organizations, and we asked for contribution for sponsorship. And then I think we donated a few hundreds of dollars that we had, and we all worked on grant. I didn't work. I'm a terrible writer, so my position has always been the powerhouse and someone copywriting outside of me. But I think that's really good. That was a really good point of what a board member, what are boards looking for board members. So any more great comments from any of the panelists, that questions that haven't been mentioned that you want to make sure to give that great insight out to more young professionals within the community?
I think just that it can be fun, it can be a lot of fun as well. I mean, the board retreat that I went to that I mentioned earlier this week, I walked in, there was all kinds of food, and they had, I mean, it was an in-person event, could you imagine that? And there were, it's a
That's
basketball,
great.
yeah, it's a basketball nonprofit. They set up
In-person
basketball
events
teams.
today is like, wow, does that still happen?
I know. It was my first one in 6 months, and they had like little toy basketballs all throughout, and just brought in some great guest speakers, and it was just fun. I mean, I think there's the need to take it seriously and make sure everything is in place, but then put yourself in a position to have fun, and not worry too much about, if you have everything in order and you're doing the things that Carol had mentioned. I think fun is an element that shouldn't be overlooked. It's one of our core values at the BOLD program. So
It's true. I hear our leadership at Cincinnati Cares is kind of addicted to being on boards. They're both on several, and they have favorites that they love, and they think I'm on it because it's fun. And I'm like, okay, good to know that you
That's
like
good.
that board. And actually, that's how they met, and how they kind of started working together, is because they were on a board together. And one of them even says some of my best friends are people that I've been on boards with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have seen great opportunities and great connections, even love connections being made on boards too. And so, yeah, that's great. I guess a good piece I will give to the young professionals tuned in via Facebook Live or playback and who are physically here is just to be transparent of your expectations and be aware of the expectations of the board, which will help you determine if you're a good fit from the board, or if you have the obligation, or if that's the kind of board that you actually want to be on. And so I think that's a good starter question to ask. I know myself, being an entrepreneur my entire life, special projects is exactly what Jennifer said. Just in Tanya added on too, is just really finding the skill sets that you're good at, and just kind of developing those skills to see how good you actually are at those skills. And it's good to impact it by volunteering your time, because it's two extra perks you get out of that. You get the opportunity to develop your skill set for a specific project, and you also are making a huge impact into the community and helping out an organization. And so, any more questions? Want to make sure I get all the questions out, or the every comment out before we end the event. Okay, I think that's everything. And I appreciate you guys attending tonight's event. I'll make sure to send out the event survey about the event afterwards. To get involved with Generation Now or to stay connected with events, please feel free to send an email to info@gennowcincy.org. And I don't know if the panelists have any more questions or any promotional actual comments to add.
I will always plug the Bold program. We
Absolutely.
we have 2 more classes in 2021. We have we just visit the website leadershipcouncil.us. Our next program will start in August, and then we have another program starting in October. So we typically take about 40 participants. So just apply on the website if you're interested.
Yep, and on that same vein, go to cincinnaticares.org to search for volunteer opportunities. And if you go to the About Us, you'll get to our events tab, which has information about our board boot camp, our Help Connect, and our Board Connect programs as well. And then our board website is boards.cincinnaticares.org. So you have to add the word boards before it and a dot to get to boards. Create a profile and see what your relevancy score comes up with for matches for board positions.
Absolutely. And those are 2 great organizations with 2 great opportunities. Also with Catch Fire. Would you like to plug in anything for Catch Fire as a volunteer, Jennifer?
As a volunteer, I don't really know all the usual talking points, but I mean, check out the website and sign up. It's really not that hard for someone who wants to donate their time. It sounds like organizations on their end actually have to go through a pretty extensive process. But for volunteers, it's pretty nice. You just kind of link up your LinkedIn profile and then you just start submitting applications.
Which is pretty cool. And so, and I would like to add something that was stated by actual non-for-profit boards and the commitment with board members and how valuable that is. It was a comment that really hit home for me. I remember in my founder and executive director experience where I didn't pick all the right board members, and some board members, maybe 30% will respond. Some people didn't show up to meetings, and still keeping that fire lit it's really hard to do that. So anybody willing to help is great. And it's always good to allow people to know your the limitations that you have. So I appreciate you guys just tuning in tonight who are interested in making an impact in the community. And I thank all the panelists for giving your time to educate our membership base about how they can get connected within the community.
Thanks for
That's it.
organizing it, Renika.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys so much.
Yes, thank you.